up against Zmoldir. I have a Lizardmen rush force up against his coast, pretty gun-heavy faction. Or gun-heavy build, where we got some deck gunners. Alright, this is pretty good for me. I'm gonna advance through this forest to make it a million times harder for him to actually gun me down. I'll surround him with my mobile forces along the flank. The dogs can't do much as I have Pterodon riders nearby. And then I'll shut down these deck gunners with a Manticore summon. I need to dive in on these gunnery mobs as quickly as possible once the fighting actually gets started. I brought Nakai and the Shredder of Lustria from viewer requests. It's not the worst unit ever, as I do have the Legion of Chiqua, which will do pretty good. They have the missile resist buff, and that'll make the Shredder of Lustria live for quite a bit longer. So just preparing this insane surround. It's going to take a while to actually get into position. And these scurvy dogs, they could hunt down some of my skinks. So I'm going to bring in my Pterodon riders to actually make sure that that doesn't go too bad. Luther Harkin too. Not flying in towards my army. That's actually a very good thing. I actually don't have any range units to protect them. But he might be expecting some chameleon skinks to be nearby. And then possibly that's why he's not sending in Luther. But as soon as I get into this forest, I should be good to go. Now with the main engagement starting to go down, spreading out my forces so that the dive-in on these guns is as effective as possible. And then all this infantry, they just have to basically A-move directly into the fight, and then they'll be good to go. The Kai and the Shredder of Lustria, they're going to be staying nice and close. A breath attack on my Source Warriors. Dodged decently, but not amazingly. The deck gunners are firing, but not too worrisome, as we have a lot of trees to support. The shielding of the trees will be more than enough to actually stop, it'll stop most of the damage there. And with the main engagement now going down, I move in with my skinks. The Pterodon riders will be flying in at the same time. And we're waiting for these guns to turn and defend, we're waiting for the guns to turn away from the Pterodon riders as I dive in. Once they actually decide to shoot at the Shredder of Lustria, I should be good to go. Because now the Pterodon riders, they get the full ability to dive right on in. The handguns turn back to shoot at the Pterodon riders. But now we are moving into the back line. Legion of Chiqua gonna give that buff to make sure that none of the forces actually get yeah, they're gonna give the missile resist buff. They only hit themselves though, which is a bit unfortunate. My front line's stalling out just a tiny bit. But the Shredder of Lustria, it is taking a lot of damage. Kai, he has to move in too. And we'll see how this goes. My Pterodon riders can now move in, now that the handguns are a bit distracted. The Shredder of Lustria can disengage for a short while I get it into a safer position. And once the skinks are actually in, I should be good. The Kai himself, gonna be in a bit of a rough situation. I'll throw down all the buffs on him before he gets absolutely murdered. And he's gonna be disengaging, trying to get into a safer position for sure. A drop rocks onto the zombies will rout them off very handily. And I just need to continue pushing into the back line now. These skinks will only hold the Vampire Coast for so long. So we gotta really go all out on diving in now. Once the guns are actually down, then the Shredder of Lustria should be able to carry out the rest of the day. So fingers crossed that works out all right. The zombies are beginning to disintegrate. Shredder of Lustria is now in the thick of things, and most of the guns are actually shut down for the coast now. So that is that's definitely a very good turn of events. Where's the Legion of Chiqua? They're all the way over here, so they can't support the Shredder. But that may not be needed, as the handgunners, they do slowly go down. One of them is still alive. I'll need to wind blast them to take them out. And I'm going to use my skinks to actually pin them down. It's very important that these guns aren't able to shoot, because the Vampire Coast guns have absolutely insane DPS. A summon drops over here, and I'm going to immediately run away from that. Shredder of Lustria does not want to take on that fight. And We'll see. We'll see. I'm doing a decent job at keeping all these guns occupied. Is very good. There's just a few bombers left, really. And let's see. Let's see. The pistol mobs are down. These guys won't be dying anytime soon with their refuse to die ability. Another rock drop here. Really good targeting. That'll take care of a lot of zombies there. And yeah, I think we should be okay. It really depends on how well Luther does against this my single entity blob at this point. The deck gunners are basically shut down. All the hand gunners are dead at this point. Let's see, another summon does drop though. I'm gonna have to disengage from that, and then probably just play keep away for a tiny bit while the summons actually disintegrate. Definitely don't want to be fighting them, and instead I'll leave that job for my infantry. Let's see, a wind blast should take out the rest of these halberds, so that works out really well. And yeah, it's gonna be a hot minute before these pistol mobs actually disintegrate, but so far I still have Nakai, I still have the Shredder of Lustria, so I think we've actually done it, surprisingly enough. The main threats here really are just these pistol mobs, and in a second this one is going to disintegrate, and this new pistol mob can get pinned down by my chameleon skinks. Luther Harkin too is nearly out of ammunition, and yeah, as soon as these guys disintegrate, there's not going to be a whole lot of threats here. The Nakai, he's going to move in directly onto these onto the pistol mob. They're trying to get their shots off on the Shredder of Lustria, so I can pull that away to a safer position, and my skink can just distract Luther for a really long time. He can very safely run away, and it takes a really long time for Luther to actually finish him off, so it'll be more than enough in terms of distraction. And then once this caster is down, the game shall be ours. We've successfully rushed the Vampire Coast, and we pinned down all their guns, kept the Shredder alive just barely, and at this point there's not much left for the coast to do. Luther Harkin, despite being a good combat lord, is now out of ammunition. Thank goodness for those ammunition debuffs. And the caster has to resort to summoning just a normal unit of zombies to defend herself. She crumbles away. The zombies will be gone soon enough too. And this bad boy still has 2,400 HP. Not to mention the Skink Priest comes back. I know from experience that Skink Priests are so annoying to actually kill off with Luther. They just get knocked around a ton, and he basically can never catch them. It's a very rough time. So despite him chasing this guy, he can just continue running. And there we go, the ground forces are beginning to crumble away. Skink Priest will give himself a leadership debuff because it stalls as much time as possible for Luther. And you know what, I'll throw down a wind blast because it does like 5 damage to Luther. And even better, it might even knock down my Skink Priest and make him even harder to chase down. This buys time as much as possible for the forces here to do well. And another thing about Nakai, look at that. All of my troops are at maximum vigor because Nakai's aura actually, yeah, he gives them perfect vigor. So they won't be getting tired anytime soon. And yeah, we can march around the map, no problem. A straight up fight against Luther will be super duper easy. And we just wait for him to come to me at this point. And here we go. The woes of flying lords trying to snipe out single entities. Especially cheap lords like this, like the Skink Priest. He's never gonna kill him. Like, this guy's basically indestructible at this point. Draw a kite incoming, 51 minutes to go. Yeah, thank goodness this isn't quick play. Otherwise, it would totally become a draw kite game. But there we go. Hey, and he finally lands the hit. You died a hero, man. You died a hero, but at this point, it's just Luther and my squad here. The Dread Saurian comes in with incredible stats. 750 weapon strength to Luther's 460. He'll basically be hitting like he'll be hitting like a pillow in this case. just absolutely no damage at all. The Howdah with crazy missile damage coming on in, and Luther now diving in. Hits Nakai. You throw down all of the buffs. The Shredder of Lustria rampages, and immediately Luther takes a pretty massive hit. No need to micro either, because all of my troops are rampaging. And look at that, he barely gets any damage. And that's gonna be GG. Stays in chat, the skink won't die. Indeed, they are very slippery. And there we go. Nakai and the boys, we did it, guys. We did it. Oh my goodness. And there we go. Special thanks to the Pterodon riders who sacrificed their lives along the way to pull out that glorious victory. Yeah, if you just look at the damage on the handgunners and deck gunners, they did okay, but I actually shut them down fairly well. The Pterodon riders and the skinks coming in are very important, and specifically, you wait for them to turn away before you dive in, and there we go. Zotek coming on in with the gift sub in extremely small text. I'll have to fix that in the I'll have to fix that later. And also, hopefully you heard the subscriber sound where Silostra sings a note. But yeah, challenge completed. Thank you very much, Zotek. That actually worked out really well. Jeez, 3,000 damage on the Shredder of Lustria. That is insane. That's actually really, yeah, that worked out really well. GG. To it. So, Rogue Idol build up against a fairly mobile Beastmen build. This is good for me, as I'm not really too worried about getting skirmished to death. My goblins, though, they'll have to worry a tiny bit. And I'm going to be doing something interesting this game. Fire at Will is off for the Rogue Idol, and I'm going to be using my micro to maximize its effectiveness up against clumped up units. So I'm going to be trying to clump up like the Beastmen infantry, their their cavalry, and so on. And then it should actually be able to get in some pretty nice damage up against the forces of the Beastmen. Just by waiting for these Centaurs and Razorgors to clump up. In the meantime, though, my skirmishers are doing absolutely amazing, and I need to get ready for the initial charge of the Beastmen. There are quite a few Chaos Spawn, and I want my Savage Orc Big Guns to tank the charge for me on that front. The skirmishers are going to be pulling away from my front line, so that I can actually keep them alive and safe. And for the caster, we're seeing Mogre. Not an especially scary target. And with the front lines now engaging, I'm going to bring in the Rogue Idol to actually support in this fight. It should be able to do fairly well against Beastmen, infantry, and Chaos Spawn. So I'll just send it directly into melee combat. Use a couple fanatics to melt down this infantry, bring in the Savage Orcs, and then we're in a pretty good position. Now, what is bad is that I did get all of my cavalry charged. That is very bad for me, but not the worst situation either. It's pretty bad though. I am actually losing a lot of cavalry here. I need to bring a few of my forces back. I am trading into them using my skirmishers though at the very least, and they're getting in a lot of damage. But the fight over here, we'll have to see how it plays out. In fact, most of this is going to come down to this big engagement here, and whether or not the Rogue Idol actually can pay for itself. I'm going to use my Savage Orcs and Goblins to screen against the cavalry, as I very much do not want to be getting charged in the back here. The debuffs to leadership would be huge, and quite terrible for my forces. As for this Bray Shaman of Wild, I'll continue Spirit Leeching him. And then an aspect of the Dread Knight to boost up the leadership of all these forces should keep my guys in the fight for quite some time. The blob fight, though, is going to be pretty rough, and I need to rely mostly on my Goblin Fanatics to do well here. As for Azag, he needs to stay fairly safe. We're starting to run out of infantry here, and I'll use my skirmishers to focus down the Chaos Spawn. Between them and the cavalry, I think killing the cavalry is a bit more important, but it takes a bit too much time to actually go ahead and hunt down cavalry. And killing off Chaos Spawn is a much easier proposition. As for the Fanatics, they should have another really nice volley here onto all of these Ungor Spearmen. Pretty good amount of damage. And if I can kill off Mogre, that would be absolutely huge. But we don't know how well that's going to play out. Not to mention, a few of the... there are actually a few archers here for the Beastmen. And that is really bad for me. They're going to be focus firing down the Rogue Idol, getting in a ton of damage. So, I'm going to try and kill off Mogre. Now that the Rogue Idol is actually damaged. And then chase off the archers. So that I can maximize its longevity in combat. If it can actually kill off Mogre here, that would be amazing. And of course I have Aspect of the Dread Knight to increase my leadership here if I need to. So I think that should go okay, but Mogre does manage to escape. However, I do still have a Rogue Idol here. It's angry, it's at high leadership. So I'm feeling like that blob fight might go okay. What is really a problem though is that these archers are still alive. It seems like my main methods of actually dealing with them have fallen apart. That is very rough. And unless I can find a way to actually finish them off, it seems like the fate of the Rogue Idol is to just get shot to death here. Heading on into the late game. It has killed off most of the cavalry. So there is a chance that I'll start being able to chase off these archers. But it seems like that might come in a little bit too late. We'll have to see. It has killed off most of the Chaos Spawn, surprisingly enough. So perhaps if I can actually get it chasing these Ungor Raiders, things will go okay. As for my skirmishers, they're still alive. I only have one of them left though. And how's the Rogue Idol doing? Oh man, it seems like its mass is not going to carry it through. Its leadership begins getting low, and it rampages. And really the only saving grace now I have is, some Spirit Leeches? That looks like it's going to be it. I think the main misplay though, I lost all of my archers, and I really shouldn't have done that. Or not my archers, my Spider Riders. I let all of them get charged, and then the archers killed off the Rogue Idol. Had I had a way of shutting these guys down, it would have been an easy victory. Like, just looking at the damage, if it had stayed alive for just a tiny bit longer, I would have done alright, but it seems like, yes indeed, ridiculous joke, cow people OP. I guess they are. They need to nerf Beastmen by the looks of it. But looking at the army, the skirmishers did great, but the spiders, they fell apart. If I had, I should have just microed them better. The Savage Orcs did okay, but I'm wondering if replacing these guys with Goblins would have done better. And as for the Azag Rogue Idol combo, I still like it. Although I think in this case it was a bit mismanaged. But here we go. We're up against Dark Phoenix. We brought a bit of a skirmish style of build with some Pterodon Riders and a lot of Javelins. He's bought a pretty heavy mobility build to counter, but with my terror causing units and my mobility, he shouldn't have too much of an easy time actually engaging onto these skinks. So I'm feeling fairly comfortable here. The Pterodon Riders with their Fire Leech Bolas should be able to hurt these guys quite a bit. Chaos Warhounds aren't a problem with my Ripper Dactyls, so I think we'll be okay. Not to mention I have Rock Drops, they're also extremely effective. The Ripper Dactyls, as long as I keep them safe, I think I'll be alright. The Skink Javelins too should perform fairly well, and the Centaurs, they'll be having a bit of a rough time here. Now these guys, they do dive in onto my Skinks. It does set up for a pretty nice rock drop, but they almost immediately disengage. On the right flank, it looks like we're still holding out okay, but I need to keep Crockguard close. Otherwise, things could go really badly there. And so far, I'd say I've pulled out a pretty nice lead. The Beastmen Skirmishers don't really do well against the counter skirmish of the Lizardmen. And the fact that he's constantly worried about blobbing up and getting shot to death or nuked by Croak is giving me a pretty nice advantage right now. As for the Pterodon Riders with Fire Leech Bolas, they have been performing magnificently up against the Beastmen. And they're quite good against infantry too. Now, this force over here, I can pretty safely disengage from that. I don't really want to be fighting that battle. And a few of my skinks do get caught out. Now, a threat of a rock drop should be able to get these guys to disengage. And if I do actually drop rocks on top of them, that should get in a lot of damage. But it looks like the riders, these Centaurs, they do manage to pull out. And they will be in a pretty safe position. As for the hounds, though, I think I'm not too afraid of them. The Pterodon riders can take them out pretty quickly, and a rock drop will be causing a pretty big rout on most of the beastmen here. Not to mention I have Krokgar coming in to support. But I'm wondering if this trade is suddenly going a little bit too badly for me. As for these forces, they are going to be getting caught out, possibly by a few Centaurs, so I'll have to be careful about that. Croak will work out really well there, though, as a way to prevent any blobbing up, and just a single deliverance of Itza should be able to get these guys to hard disengage. Otherwise, they are going to be in for a rough time. And oh man, the cast time on that is forever. They do manage to disengage, but it's not the worst case scenario. I have more spells where that came from, and not to mention, let's see here, with the Hand of the Gods, I should be able to kill the Bray Shaman, and any amount of clumping up for the Beastmen is going to be really rough. You see there, the Hand of the Gods almost one-shots the Bray Shaman of Wild. He is in for a very bad day, and he should be routing off in just a second. After that, Croak and his AoEs should be able to deal with any of these Centaurs fairly well. I am losing a lot of skinks though, but overall, I think with another Hand of the Gods routing off the Chariot Lord, I should be okay. As long as I save a couple of rock drops too for any of these blobs, I should be pretty secure on that front. And the skirmishers should be running out of ammunition pretty soon too. As for any of the Beastmen forces that rout off, it's very important that I actually chase them and finish them off. As if they come back, that's going to be pretty rough, and a few of these guys are actually back. I'll throw down a rock drop though, just to finish off these Centaurs, but things are getting a bit dicey here. Krokgar is fully surrounded. I'll throw down a Shield of the Old Ones to boost up the leadership, but it looks like the Beastmen, they might actually come out on top here. Krokgar getting hard surrounded is definitely not a great position for him. He will manage to disengage, but there are still a lot of Centaurs with throwing axes. It seems like I might run into a similar issue that I did last time, where the archers really cause too many, where the archers really just snipe out all of my precious single entities. The big difference here this time though is that I do have a ton of Pterodon riders, and the Pterodon riders are quite good at actually defending my single entities and wasting the ammunition of the Centaurs. Not to mention too, the Beastmen, they are beginning to run out of steam. The Chaos Spawn Summon will eventually disintegrate, and after that's down, after the summon is down, then the balance of power should swing back into my favor. However, another volley of Centaurs could take down Krokgar. I'll disengage with him again, send in my Pterodon riders, and then start sniping out Mogr. I also might lose my caster to this Bray Shaman of Wild, and I'm gonna see if I can snipe out this guy with another Hand of the Gods. It should work out pretty well. And there we go, it comes down, and the Bray Shaman looks like he should be out of the battlefield now. That's very good for me, although Croak will be dying, unfortunately. It seems like, oh, actually, no, the balance of power is terrible for me right now. What happened? Oh my goodness, Krokgar actually getting caught up. We might even run into army losses, surprisingly enough. Not sure what happened there. Mogr actually winning the duel up against Krokgar. Wow, the Beastmen with the Centaur spam actually coming out on top. GG, and that's gonna be it. Looks like, yeah, in the end, just those Centaurs was enough. Oh my goodness. Brutal. Brutal. Mogre killing off Krokgar too. Insane. And you know what? I think the casts on poor old Lord Croak here was not really enough. The cast time was so long he could actually stay in combat and get the disengage. And I think yeah, that's probably the major thing that that caused problems there. In general, I would recommend cutting Croak for a bit more cavalry, and then that would actually make the build pretty scary. The Ripperdactyls too actually got shut down pretty quickly, and honestly it was the Fire Leech Bolas that got most of the value there. So GG, and I guess on to the next one. This last build of today is a Greenskin build, countering Kite, but instead it looks like gonna be a weird Bloodrack Shrine build coming in with the Manticore special with Rakarth and a Supreme Sorceress of Fire. Alright, that's a bit of a strange build, but I think immediately I'll already have a pretty nice advantage. My cavalry will win out against these Dark Riders very handily. So I'll just send them in directly, do that. And then I'll move up my front line to start engaging the Dark Elves. Grimgore is going to be an amazing tool for killing off the Bloodrack Shrine. There are a few shades at the ready that we'll have to be a tiny bit wary of. But I should be able to actually dive in on top of them pretty hard with my cavalry. So I'm not too worried on that front. And Rakarth can't really land without getting double mithered and sniped out by Grimgore. So on that front, I'm feeling fairly confident. And now with the mainline engagement underway, let's see if I can win this. We'll send in the River Troll Hags along with Grimgore. Get in onto this infantry fight. And Grimgore, you know what? He really wants to fight this this Bloodrack Shrine. The River Troll Hags can move into support. And as long as the shades are shut down, I think this game should be fairly straightforward. I'll send in goblins to go ahead and chase them, and then the fanatics can simply be used to kill off the dark shards. Mither number 1 to pin down the Bloodrack Shrine, and I'll leave some cavalry in reserve just to yeah, I'll leave some cavalry in reserve just to really just for a surround, like right now. A pretty nice scenario for a good surround. I can throw down another Mither, this time on Rakarth, and a Spirit Leech on top of him too, plus Grimgore. Means that he's going to be in for a really rough time. I think Rakarth should be dying fairly quickly, and given that I've shut down most of the range support, this should be a pretty straightforward win at this point. Grimgore will hit like an absolute truck, and that is one thing that makes him much better than many of the other Greenskin Lord possibilities. He's actually crazy good in a straight up fight. And there we go. Rakarth looks like he is on his last legs. He actually gets routed off, and Grimgore can now take care of the Bloodrack Shrine and the rest of the yeah, the Bloodrack Shrine and the rest of the single entities like the Manticore. My overwhelming cavalry force too has done really good up against the shades, and I don't think my opponent was really ready for this amount of Greenskin Boar cavalry. It can come in as quite a surprise, and it's going to be more than enough to overwhelm all of that Dark Elf mobility. The Bloodrack Shrine is now down, so the next goal is to hunt down the Manticore, and I believe that should be game. That was very straightforward. Just basically a march forward and attack them style. Rakarth is coming in to land on top of the River Troll Hag, but another Mither, and Rakarth is going to be pinned down, and Grimgore, we'll see how many hits it takes him to actually take him out. One hit gets him pretty low, a second one hopefully. Nah, it looks like he doesn't manage to connect. So the game may go down, go for slightly longer, but yeah, Rakarth is just a little bit too pinned down. In fact, if I can catch him with some Spider Riders, that could actually seal his fate even more. as he now gets surrounded by cavalry. And that's gonna be it. There we go. I think really the biggest problem for the Dark Elves here was indeed their usage of shades. I think he was more prepared for a troll type of rush, a much slower style of build, and he didn't really have the cavalry to deal with this many boar boys. Yeah. There we go, the shades, barely any value, and the front line too was actually really thin. This was a bit of a strange Dark Elf build. Most of the money went into the Bloodwrack Shrine and Rakarth, and they really didn't pay for themselves too much. He got a snipe on one of the Troll Hags, but that ended up not really playing out. If I would change the build, I'd probably replace the Shrine and replace Rakarth with something that works out a tiny bit better. But still, GG and well played. That's gonna be it for today.